Hi guys, this is Uncle Rich with Trekking Ahead. And I thought I'd have a little trail talk video with you guys. So I'm out for a quick walk on my lunch break from work. And I saw over the weekend a post by Mike McLaughlin. And he asked, how do I get faster? Asking for a friend. Well, Mike, I always have to laugh at the any comment that says I'm just asking for a friend. But I thought I'd address this question on a trail talk video here. I know this was posted over in the hiking forum, but there's an awful lot of crossbleed over between hikers and backpackers, so I'm going to address it as both a hiker and as a backpacker. Getting faster. If you're a backpacker, I'm going to suggest when you're actually on a trail and you want to get faster that you lighten your load. I'm not talking about going all UL or anything like that, but take a look at your big three, your backpack, your sleeping bag, or your sleep system, and your shelter, or your tent, or hammock, or tarp, whatever it is that you're using for those three things, shelter, bag, and sleep system, and spend a little bit of money if you need to. Lighten up there as much as you can, but make sure that you're still having an enjoyable experience. I don't want you getting cold or wet or anything because you picked some cheap gear from Walmart or something. But try to lighten up a little bit. If you're just a strictly hiker, not a backpacker, I'd suggest that you take a look at what you're wearing. Make sure that you're wearing light clothes. Maybe knock off on the jeans and the heavier pants. Maybe look at some nice light thin backpacking pants, or even running clothes like running tights and shorts, wick away t-shirts. Keep your load light that way. Maybe if you carry a lot of drinking water along, if you're strictly a hiker, that you consider maybe taking a smaller amount of water with you and carrying a Sawyer water filter and reload your water supply while you're on the road, or I'm sorry, while you're on the trail, instead of carrying so much with you all the time. The next way is develop a better morning routine. I know I'm guilty of this, and I've seen a lot of first time or early newer backpackers have this problem. They just can't get going in the morning. They spend hours at camp, breaking down camp and everything before they even get on a trail, and they put themselves behind schedule right off the bat. Now, if you're a backpacker, I'd make a couple suggestions here. One is, in order to get out on the trail faster, is get familiar with your shelter and your equipment, and make sure that you understand how stuff goes together and how stuff comes apart, and get a little bit more organized in how you're packing your shelter and sleep system, and be more familiar with it so that you can break it down quicker and quickly. The other big time waster in the morning, besides breaking down your shelter and your sleep system, is of course breakfast. Now, I know this is going to anger a lot of caffeine addicts and that here, but maybe forgo a hot breakfast. You know, maybe forgo that morning cup of joe and that nice dehydrated meal of scrambled eggs and bacon, or whatever it is that you choose to do for breakfast. Maybe you should consider either just a breakfast granola bar, cereal bar, something that's like ready to eat and ready to go. You can munch on it while you're actually hiking down the trail, instead of just sitting around waiting for a couple cups of water to boil and then your stove to cool down before you pack it away and all that other stuff. Save those more labor intensive meals for dinner. And start thinking of breakfast more like you do a lunch on a trail, and stick to like snacky type foods and breakfast bars, and if you're one of those people, even maybe just cold Pop-Tarts. Ugh. But whatever. I've even seen people who want to get going early in the morning and who are big coffee drinkers, who will actually have a cup of coffee made up the night before and then let it cool, and they'll drink their coffee cold in the morning as they're hitting the trail. But whatever you need to do, look into your morning routine. If you're a hiker only, why don't you consider perhaps sleeping in your car at the trailhead, if you're allowed to do that and you don't live in some fascist state like New York. Consider staying at the trailhead, sleeping at the trailhead, or whatever you need to do to get an early start in the morning. The other thing after the morning routine is going to be trekking poles. Now, I know a lot of people are going to, tell me about how trekking poles is just one more thing to have to carry and one more thing they have to fumble with. And some people don't get quite how to do trekking poles right and stuff like that. Let me just tell you, trekking poles really are a savior when it comes to getting miles in on a trail. They help you keep your balance when you're on sideways inclines. They help you get up hills faster. They help you descend hills safer. My wife just got done running a 50K down in Titusville, Pennsylvania over this weekend. And these people, they had 50Kers, 100Kers, and 100 milers even. So we're talking about people who are running trails, putting on some really big distances. And I would say probably about 30% of them, and these are runners, are using trekking poles. I saw them coming in over the finish line as I was waiting for my wife to come in. And I just kind of figured it in my mind, no mass statistics or anything, but about 30% of them were using trekking poles. And the reason why is so that they can maintain themselves, maintain their knees, maintain their ankles, and keep those longer distances going, because they aren't putting as much torque on their joints, on their knees and their ankles when they're going on sideways inclines, and when they're going downhill. They aren't putting as much shock and that on their knees. Trust me, I've talked to several older people who were using trekking poles that swear that if they weren't using trekking poles, they probably wouldn't be hiking any longer, just because of the impact on their joints. So that's my rant on trekking poles. If people can carry trekking poles while they're running and figure out how to get their stride down and their cadence down with their trekking poles to where it works out for them, then you definitely can do it too if you're hiking or backpacking. So, watch some videos on YouTube. If you don't like it, just do whatever feels comfortable, whatever feels natural. And trust me, first time you're crossing a stream and your foot slips out from underneath you and you caught yourself because you were using trekking poles, that alone, you'll thank me. Okay, so that's trekking poles. Next thing is cross training. Now, when we think of cross training, it's like, what's he talking about here? Let me just give you a quick little story. I was listening to a podcast about a month back or so, Joe Rogan Experience. And listen, I don't agree with Joe Rogan on a lot of things, on a lot of his different views, but he's got a really neat forum where he's spending 2 or 3 hours interviewing interesting people, and sometimes he actually hits topics that I'm interested in, such as health and wellness, or exercising, or hunting, or whatever it is. He has some interesting guests on sometimes, and they do really deep dives. Well, I say that to tell you about one of the guests that he had on. I don't remember his name, so I apologize, but he wanted to get into elk hunting, archery, through archery season. So, and the first time he went out and did it, he found that he just didn't have the stamina to do all the steep uphill mountain climbing and that he had to do to be successful at this new sport that he's trying to become good at. So what did he do? He decided to take up running. Now, isn't that quite a jump? Taking up running so he can be better at the thing that he loves, which is hunting. So he took up running, and after a couple years actually became an ultra runner. And if you don't know what an ultra runner is, that's somebody who runs more than a marathon, like my wife did this weekend, where she was running 50 kilometers. So these are, those are some serious miles he's putting on, some serious work and dedication he's putting into a sport that really isn't the thing that he loves, but it's something that he's using as a training tool for the thing that he does love, hunting. So I suggest you find something else that helps you out. Maybe even if it's just going out for a walk every night and extending the distance that you're walking. Another thing that I have found is great for working on distance is hills. Find some place near you where there's a short trail with a steep incline and just do hill repeats. Go up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill. But whatever you do decide to do for cross training, whether it's walking, whether it's running, whether it's hill repeats or whatever you do, just make sure you do it regularly. Get out there and do it regularly. Like, for instance, I'm out hiking this trail during my lunch hour at work. Find a hiking buddy. This is a big one, because I find so many times in life, we're defined by the people we surround ourselves with. If you're a lone hiker or a lone backpacker, or you only hike or backpack with those people whom are at your skill level, or maybe even slower than you, then you're doing yourself a big injustice and you're not challenging yourself. I would recommend you post on this hiking forum, or any of the backpacking forums, or any of your local hiking and backpacking forums, and try to find a hiking buddy and schedule some trips and find out, which ones you're compatible with, which ones are faster than you, and can challenge you. And trust me, there's nothing quite like the motivation of letting someone else down. I know me personally, it's very easy if I'm doing something by myself to just give up on myself and say, I just don't have it in me today, I'm gonna call it quits. But when you're with somebody else, I don't want to let them down. I don't want to slow them down on their trek. I want to keep moving, and so I push myself for them. So surround yourself with people who have better skill level and better habits than you. That's another good way to get faster. And maybe you can't find someone locally, but guess what? There are things like Cardio Trainer and Map My Run, and there's all these different apps that you can install on your Android or Apple phone that you can challenge other people who aren't near you. I know my wife and I looked into this with a friend that moved away from us at one point in time, and now they just do it over the phone, calling each other and go, hey, I just got done with a run, and this is how I did, this is how long it took me. But find a challenge partner that's remote, and you can do that virtually via an app where you're challenging a group of people or another person via an application where it automatically sends them how well you did, and you guys can try to best each other. But find a partner, find an accountability partner of some kind, whether it's virtual or in person or just somebody over the phone that'll challenge you and help you to do better than what you're doing right now. Well, I'm sure there's lots of other ways, and I'd like to hear some of you guys' other ideas on how to get faster. We talked about, lightening your load. We talked about a better morning routine, trekking poles, cross training, and accountability partners. And all those things are great little steps that you can take. Just pick one of them, try it out, see what you think, and hey, becoming a better athlete, becoming a better hiker, backpacker, runner, whatever it is that you're doing is a process. And sometimes you need to do a lot of different things and see what sticks in your process. And just try different things. Like, for instance, first thing I said was lightening your load. Well, that really does apply when you're on the trail. But maybe when you're doing your cross training, you're hiking, or you're walking, or you're running, or whatever, to cross train for hiking and backpacking, maybe you give yourself a really heavy load. I know my boys are swimmers, and they have this thing called swimming and drag. Okay, no, that isn't what you might be thinking. That doesn't mean that my boys dress up as little girls and go swimming. That means that they wear these big bulky suits over top of their jammers or their Speedos that catch the water. And sometimes they have inverted pockets facing upwards, so that as they're swimming through the water, these pockets are grabbing the water and slowing them down and creating drag. Maybe you should consider doing what I did when I was about 13 or 14 years old and getting ready to go for a expedition with Boy Scouts out to the Philmont Scout Ranch out there, where we were going to be backpacking for 2 weeks. Is we would take our backpacks and we would fill them up with milk jugs full of water. We would just take our backpacks, and usually I would fit 2, sometimes even 3 milk jugs full of water in my backpack, 2 in the top and 1 in the lower compartment, and then I'd stuff clothes around them so that they didn't slide all over the place, to kind of make the load a little bit more solid. And then I would go and I would hike with that. And the beautiful thing about water jugs is if you get out there and you found that you've overdone it, you've put too much weight on too fast, you just open up a lid and dump some water out somewhere. You aren't littering, you aren't leaving anything behind. You're just dumping a little bit of water to lighten your load. But that worked out really well for me. It might work out well for you guys in your cross training or in your training to become a faster hiker, a faster backpacker, or whatever it is in your cross training. I hope some of these tips have helped you guys out. I'd really like to hear in the comments below if you guys got some other ideas on how somebody can become a faster backpacker, hiker. What are your ideas? Go ahead and list them in the comments down below, and I'd really appreciate it. And let's get a discussion going. Well, this has been Rich with Trekking Ahead, doing another trail talk, and I hope you guys have an awesome day, and may the trail rise up to meet you guys.